Say good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, and thank you for joining our very first mentor-mentee presentation. Today, I will hand it over to Dilia and Salija, who will be talking about capturing user input with Copilot Studio, using adaptive cards and with SharePoint. So Dilia, Salija, I will let you over to you ladies for you to drive this.
Thank you so much, Ria. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Delia, and I am here with my wonderful mentor, Salaja, and we are going to talk about capturing user input with Copilot Studio agents. So let me share my screen, and then we'll go ahead and take it from there. All right. Beautiful. Okay. So we're talking about capturing user input with Copilot. Let's first start off with some introductions. My name is Dalia Zuniga. I'm on the leadership team of the Women in Power, and I help with our events subcommittee. I've been involved with the Women in Power for over a year now, which is amazing. I feel like I've been here for forever in a good way. Because I've been able to build so many beautiful friendships and mentorships throughout the time. I am a consultant. I work for Huron Consulting Group, where I'm a Power Platform Solution Architect, where I deliver Copilot training and develop agents and automations for our clients, as well as for internal initiatives. And with that, I'll hand it over to my wonderful mentor.
Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to the first meetup of 2026 for the Women in Power cohort. My name is Sailaja Mantri-Pragada. I am a business applications MVP and I run a company called Low Code Power. I'm the principal solutions architect and I am a Power Platform specialist and work with Copilot agents and governance right now. So let's get started. So before Delia would dive into her demo and the amazing presentation, I wanted to just bring to the attention this topic, AI agents versus agentic AI. I'm sure it's every day, everybody is, you hear them every day, right? And I've seen people use these terms interchangeably sometimes because they're not, they haven't been working with agents yet, or it's completely new to them. So I just wanted to demystify and just separate the terms. So AI agents versus agentic AI, right? So let's talk about the AI agents first. I'd like to use the metaphor of a new intern or maybe a developer versus an architect to compare AI agents and the agentic AI systems. So basically, AI agents are you provide a task to an AI agent and say, can you take this topic, go around, check the internet, and get me a summary of the latest news on this topic. It's a task, right? So AI agents conform to predictable path and they have a bounded autonomy. They can go and search and look around and do things for you, but they're constrained to a certain boundary, and you work within that scope, right? So these are good for repeatable tasks and intake forms, something very simple that they have the final output in mind. Whereas let's talk about agentic AI. Agentic AI is not just one, it's not exactly like AI agent. When you say AI agent, you're talking about a certain entity, right? Agentic AI is a system and it's a concept which is goal driven. For example, let's take an example of trip planning, right? To an AI agent, we say, I can you find me tickets for May 22nd, 2026 and book the tickets? It will go find, maybe you will add and say, find me the cheapest or the fastest tickets to a destination and book the tickets. That is an AI agent. With agentic AI, you can tell the system, a set of details, and you can say, for example, I want to book. I want to book a getaway for my family that has not been on a trip for the last 3 years, and I want it to be memorable. I have two kids. I need kid-friendly spaces, but we also need to chill for some time. It shouldn't be too busy, and it should. We need it only within a certain country. So you give a goal to an agentic AI system and let it fly from there. You let it keeps it open ended. Based on what you said, it will go look up, search, and use its decision making abilities to give you the final output. So it is multi-step, and it can plan by itself, it can execute by itself. It is autonomous in the boundary of your goal. So that is agentic AI. So within the space of Copilot, if you are, so you can give it an epic. When I say epic in terms of the agile methodology, give it a certain goal with a detailed description and let it take its course. This is the concept I wanted to demystify for people. So, yeah, I have Delia take it from there.
Awesome. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. So I think that context is going to be really helpful as we go into the next portion of today's call, where it's really going to be looking at a very particular use case and looking more at a very deterministic, where you have a lot of control type of an agent. And what we're going to be talking and focusing more about is really that capturing user input, right? Where we're constantly hearing that your agent is only going to be as good as the data that it's grounded in. But what if the agent is also in charge of capturing that data that it can then leverage for insights later on? So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. And if you've been building agents for a while now, or even not even that long now, you may be familiar with the idea of topics where a particular topic is triggered, and throughout that topic, there might be certain questions that are being asked of the user. And there's also this idea of slot filling, which we'll kind of go into first, right? You may have used this slot filling in the building of your agent, and essentially what this does is have a topic where you define input variables. You'll notice here this topic just has the trigger. I don't have any messages, I don't have any actions, I don't even ask any questions, as you can see in this particular topic, but I've defined inputs in this trigger, which now are in this topic, which allows the agent to understand more or less what it needs to capture whenever this particular topic is triggered. And so as you can see here for this particular topic, it's a very simple topic, right? It's ask me about my day. So whenever the user says, ask me about my day, it's going to take those input variables, and the agent is going to think on its own to determine how it is that it should ask the user to get that information to store the values in those input variables. So and in the back end, what I did is I defined 3 input variables. I defined one for mood, nutrition, and goals. So as you can see in the test panel, I said, ask me about my day, which triggered this topic, right? And then it asked me, how are you feeling today? And I said, excited. So it's now capturing my input into that variable that I defined within the topic. And then it's asking me asking me a question for the next variable, which was my nutrition. So what did you eat today? And I gave it an answer. What do you want to do today? So your goals, so on and so forth. But as you can see here, the conversation can get quite lengthy if you have multiple input variables that the agent agent is supposed to capture information for. And it's a lot of back and forth. And I work with consultants, and we are constantly time poor, right? We need things quickly. We just need to give the agent the information that it needs to give us what we need from the agent so we can move on to the next task. And so this is an example of slot filling where there's a lot of back and forth, right? The conversation can get quite lengthy. Similarly, if you're not using input variables in this particular way, your topics might still be quite lengthy if you're asking questions that are multiple choice or whatever types of questions, and your conversation can get quite long. And this was kind of where I had started in my agent building journey. It was doing things like this. And I thought, from an end user's perspective, because I also have a background in change management, this isn't the greatest user experience. I need something that is quick, where I can just give it the information that I need. And then I discovered the wonderful world of adaptive cards. And what adaptive cards are essentially a form that is passed to the user, which contains a series of fields that they can quickly just input all the information that they need and submit it, as opposed to all this back and forth and lengthening the length of the conversation. It's one simple form. They input the information. The agent now has what it needs, and it can continue with the rest of the workflow. The great things about adaptive cards is that it gives you that structure. You have full control over the way that it appears to the user. You can define particular fields on whether or not you want them to be required or optional. There's validation in place of those required fields, and if they don't fill it out, you can give them a nice message saying, hey, this is a required field. Go ahead and submit, fill this out before you submit it. And the great thing is that it can render everywhere, whether you're deploying an agent to M365 Copilot or Microsoft Teams or any other channel. So a few components that go into an adaptive card, these are just some of them, is you have your inputs, right? You need to define your fields, where it is that you want the user to fill in information. And you'll notice from this screenshot that there's different types of fields, right? That very first one is a single line of text field. So not very much information is expected to be provided in that particular field. Whereas the next field, what was worked on, is a much bigger box, because in the back end, I define that as a multiple lines of text field. And then we have our status, which, as you can see from the caret there, that it's a drop-down menu. So these are just, I wanted a way in which I can show you the different types of fields that you can define using adaptive cards. So if we think back to my previous example about asking me about my day, I no longer have to go back and forth with an agent so many times so that the agent can capture this information. It can present that information to me through an adaptive card, and I quickly can just fill that in and then click that submit button at the very end, which is one of the most important pieces of an adaptive card, because that's kind of what closes that message and gives the information back to the agent so that it knows exactly what to do next. So as I mentioned, there's also validation in place, which can be really helpful, so that you can make sure that the data coming in is in the right format, that you're capturing the right data before you're writing that to any data source where you're going to be storing that information. And so with adaptive cards, you can also manage it through dynamic content, in that you can pre-fill certain fields for them. If 99% of the time it's going to be a particular value, you can already put that in there for the user as a default value. You can add help text on there, so you can help guide the user in their understanding of what exactly they need to be putting in a particular field. You can pull in reference variables, so if you have other variables that you're capturing throughout the conversation in other topics, you can pull in some of those global variables into the adaptive card. So again, you're asking the user to fill in the least amount of information, because you're already reusing some of the other information that the user had already provided you earlier on in the conversation. So I wanted to provide some of that context. So now what we're going to be moving into is our particular use case. And here I'm going to be focusing on the status tracker agent. So I wanted to introduce kind of what this agent is, what it does, how it works, some of the key benefits. And this is actually an agent that I built for my organization that we use on all of our projects. And this is the status tracker agent. And with the show of hands or reactions or anything, how many times have you been on a project and maybe you're asked to attend daily team stand-up calls where everyone is going around the room and sharing their updates? It's a really boring way to capture information, to collaborate with one another. Most of the time people are, multitasking, they're not listening. It's really just for the PM to understand kind of where everyone is. Although the intent really should be, if there's a blocker for one team that's going to impact another team, then that's supposed to be a time where the second team is made aware of certain things so that they can help, redirect their approach, so on and so forth. But more often than not, that doesn't happen because it's a 30-minute call that we're asked to attend every single day. It's pulling us away from the work that we should be doing. And essentially they're ineffective, right? At least in my personal experience. So to combat that, I thought, okay, well, how can we use AI? How can we build an agent so that we can maybe just go away with these team update calls, or more importantly, schedule them with intention, right? Scheduling them with a particular purpose, so that we have an outcome at the end of the call, as opposed to it feeling like we're just there sitting around spending 30 minutes. So this is where the status tracker agent comes into play. So the idea of the status tracker agent is that everyone on the project team has access to this agent. And what this agent allows the team to do is to submit updates as the week goes on. So as they're completing a task, as they wrapped up a call with their customer, anything that's happening in relation to the project, our project team members are asked to quickly fill out this adaptive card to capture those pieces of information. And then the idea is that at the end of the week, or however often the project manager needs this information, they can quickly run the status report, whether it's at the end of the week or again, whenever it is that they need. And a nice email will help consolidate all of the information so that at any point in time, anyone on the team knows exactly where the project is. And the great thing about the status tracker agent is, let's say I'm in work stream A, and I can now ask the agent, hey, what are some updates that might impact work stream A that may have been shared by work streams B through D? And it can read through all of the updates that have been submitted and surface some of those insights and get back to the user, as opposed to having to say on a call or anything like that. They can quickly get the information that they need. Or if the PM runs this agent and identifies a particular blocker or a risk or what have you, that requires additional discussion, then that's a topic that we can bring into the agenda for a team call. And at that point, it doesn't feel like we're just going around sharing our updates. We've already done that. The agent has already helped us gather all of that information, so we can just pull that information in and now have a very intentional meeting with clear objectives. And so it has really helped streamline the calls that our teams have. It has helped align all of the different work streams to ensure that everyone understands where everyone is. And it also has helped save us time and in the time that it took us every week to generate our own personal status reports that we were required to submit. So thinking about the status tracker, one of the ways in which we were capturing information was through an adaptive card. So there's a few things I wanted to show you. When we're capturing information through an agent, there's three components to it, right? There's the adaptive card through the topic, which is the form being sent to the user, where we capture all of that information. And then all of that information is ran through an agent flow or a Power Automate flow or a workflow. I don't know, name constantly is changing, but it's going through that automation to then write that data to a SharePoint list. And then once you have that data, the agent has access to it, so it can then surface insights, identify outliers, identify trends, things like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the agent live in Teams so you can see what the adaptive card looks like in practice. I'm going to show you the SharePoint list where the data gets written to. And then I'm going to show you the back end. I'm going to show you how simple that agent flow actually is. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to show you a couple other ways where you can configure this same type of workflow, but without having it be nearly as deterministic as what I'm about to show you here. So first thing up is the agent that I want to show you. So this is the status tracker agent. I've already kind of, had multiple messages going back and forth with the agent. I personally always like to add suggested prompts for any and all of my agents so I can help guide the user in their understanding of the agent's capabilities. So usually the first one is one of the more important ones. So as we can see here, the submit new update. So with the simple of a message of a hello, the agent tells me really quickly what it's aimed to do. I say, wonderful, I'm going to use my suggested prompts and I'm going to say, you know what, I need to submit a new update because I just completed a deliverable and I want to make sure that the rest of the team is informed of the completion of the deliverable. So this is the adaptive card. Your adaptive cards don't necessarily need to be this long. You can break them up if you need to, or they can be really short, 2 or 3 questions. But this is that same adaptive card that we saw in my screenshot earlier. So here I can put in the name of my sub team. I can describe what it was that I worked on. From the status, again, I mentioned it's a drop-down menu. So from here, I can say, based on the information that I shared with you, I'm on track or this is at risk, so on and so forth. I can provide details on any blockers or risks I may have encountered, the priority, high, medium, low, so on and so forth, right? There's a date picker, which is another field that I didn't show before, but you also have a date picker field that you can input into an adaptive card. And then I can go ahead and submit this update. So what happens after this? I submitted my information through an adaptive card. That information, the agent is instructed to now pass that into an agent flow, and that agent flow is responsible for writing the data back to our SharePoint list. So let me first show you what the end result looks like. This is all dummy data, so it's not real for my organization, but this is what that SharePoint list looks like. Every time a project team member submits their information, it gets logged to this SharePoint list where I'm able to capture the sub team, which is information that I captured from the adaptive card. But I've also captured the name of the person who submitted it, the date it was submitted, and the week of. So this week of is not something that I captured in the adaptive card. I'm not asking the user to tell me the date of the Monday the week that we're in. That is an expression that I configured in the back end, and I'll show you that in just a second. But through the adaptive card, right, we also captured all of the other columns that you see here in this SharePoint list. So then my agent is grounded in this SharePoint list, and it can help answer any questions that where the information lives in the SharePoint list. So I showed you the agent in Teams, how the adaptive card comes through, the user can fill it out, it gets posted to the SharePoint list. But what you're probably curious about is, okay, what happens in between those 2 points? What is happening in the middle that allows the agent to write the information to the SharePoint list? And that is the agent flow. So this is our agent, the back end. I'm going to go into the topic and I'm going to show you the submit new update topic. So it's triggered whenever the user says that they want to submit a new update. This is the adaptive card. You can go in here, you can edit the adaptive card. This designer is really easy. What I will also share with you is at the very beginning of my time using adaptive cards, even though this seems kind of easy of just drag and drop the components, I still had a really hard time in creating adaptive cards, and that is a perfect opportunity to bring Copilot into the development process. So especially when I needed to create a more complicated adaptive card, I would just describe my intention to Copilot, and I would say, hey, Copilot, just give me the JSON that I need to create this adaptive card. And Copilot did exactly that. And I would simply just copy it and paste it into the payload editor here, and my adaptive card is created for me. So that's just another way where you can another way in which you can easily create adaptive cards if this feels a little bit too much at first. So once we've done that, the next thing that I've done is I've instructed the agent to call this Power Automate flow or agent flow and to write the data to my SharePoint list. So here I want to show you what this agent flow looks like. And it's actually very simple. It shows us 3 steps, but in reality, it's just a single step. This first action and this last action kind of come out of the box whenever you build an agent or an agent flow in the context of an agent. And really, you're asked to just fill in any of the actions that need to happen in between there. So all I added here was create item. So I defined my input. So I told my agent flow, okay, you should expect all of these fields that the agent is going to give you. So you first need to define all of your fields as input fields in your trigger, which then allows you to pull in that information in any of the subsequent actions. So here we have our create item. I defined the SharePoint list, the site, all that great information. And now I just pulled in and started mapping all of these fields. So the submitted by is something that I captured through the agent, through some of the system variables. So now I can just pull in all of those fields in all the right places for the create item for the SharePoint list. But you'll notice that there's a couple of them that are actually expressions, meaning they're not being pulled in by any input trigger inputs that I defined at the very beginning of this flow, but they're expressions that I'm calculating. So for the date submitted, I don't need to ask the user, hey, what day is it, right? Because the agent, the technology is smart enough to understand what day we're on. So that is an expression that I pull in here. So I simply just pull in the UTC now, and maybe I might format it a little bit to match what it is that I'm looking for. Same for the week of, right? If it's Thursday, right? Today's Thursday, May 21st, the week of, I want to calculate the date of the Monday. So of this Monday, what is it, the 18th? And so again, you don't need to know how to write these expressions if you're unfamiliar with FX, with building these expressions. You can use Copilot. Help describe your intention to Copilot, what it is that you're looking for, and Copilot can help give you the expression that you need to input into this particular field. So that's exactly what we did here. And then all of the other fields we just mapped to the some of the inputs that we were capturing through the adaptive card. And then that's it. It's taken the information from the adaptive card. Through the agent flow, we've done that mapping and we can post it to our SharePoint list. Now, whenever you have a single action like this, you probably don't even need an agent flow, right? You can just create a tool within your agent and instruct your agent to just call that tool whenever the adaptive card is filled out. But what I wanted to show here is this next piece of the puzzle, that whenever you have an agent flow, you can actually take it one step further and input additional actions within the agent flow. So for example, the agent flow that I showed had 3 steps. It was really just the one of the creating an item. But imagine you're capturing information where you might want to run sentiment analysis on what was captured, in which case you can insert an AI prompt or run a prompt action in your agent flow. Or let's say you wanted to capture additional information about the user that isn't captured through any of the system variables in the agent, in which case you can input the get user profile action. What that allows you to do, so this is now the new workflow that I'm showing, is the topic is triggered because the user said that they wanted to submit a new update. The adaptive card is sent over, the user fills it out, and then the next step in the flow, once they submitted it, is the get user profile, and then I can go ahead and create the list. The reason you can input the get user profile here is because what this gives you, this gives you a lot of access to information that you may otherwise not have access to, such as the user's department or their job title or office location or manager. Those might be certain things that you want to pull into your SharePoint list if the use case deems it, right? And so this agent flow really helps open up the doors for pulling in any other information, for restructuring your data, so on and so forth. And as I start wrapping up here, there's a few things, a few takeaways from today's call that I'm hoping that you take with you. And that is not necessarily don't slot fill in chat. Just keep in mind that what the user experience is. So if you're going to be asking multiple questions, think about what that means for the user. They're having to sit there going back and forth. That might be an opportunity to incorporate adaptive cards. And the second is there's more than one way to accomplish the exact same thing. You can create an agent flow that can write data to a SharePoint list, or you can just configure independent tools that the agent can call when it deems appropriate. And there's so many other ways to achieve the same result. And the third one is let the platform do the boring parts, right? The calculation of figuring out the date of the Monday that the week that we're currently in or today's date, those things the user doesn't need to do, but have the agent, the technology calculate those dates for you. So you're only capturing what is really necessary from the user so that they have a seamless and great experience with your agent, which is, of course, is only going to help with your adoption. All right, so that was a lot. I hope this has been helpful. If this agent sounds interesting to you and is an agent that you would like to have for yourself or your own teams, we're actually going to have a skilling session on this particular agent, which is going to be June 2nd. It's part of the Women in Power program that we deliver for you all. And I'm going to be showing you step by step for how to build this agent. And that call is going to be hosted on June 2nd, about an hour long. And you'll leave with a build guide. So if you're not able to attend, just register, and that will allow us to give you the build guide ahead of the call so that you have that whether or not you're able to attend. So a lot of great stuff happening with Women in Power. I highly encourage you all to check out our LinkedIn. We just put out there a new link tree, which is essentially a way in which we can consolidate all of our links that we have going around. Where you can access all of our upcoming events. You can submit to be a speaker for any of our calls, and you can join the waitlist for mentorship and or join the mentorship program when the time comes. So anyways, I wanted to share with you, and I actually do have a link here, which I'll share in just a moment in the chat. So at this time, I'd like to open up for any questions, any comments, any feedback that you all might have to share at this time. Yeah, Sam, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm relatively new to building agents, but I actually I Scrum lead a project, and this looks really useful in that sense.
Awesome.
But I'm just wondering on next steps, sort of once you've listed things like blockers and other things, was there a part where you're actually alerting, or you can set in a flow which would go and alert certain members of the team for further actions, I guess, beyond what we're doing?
Yes. Yeah, so the agent that I just showed is very much our MVP, right? Our minimum viable product, and it has evolved since then. So now whenever there's anything that might impact a team, I can actually tell my agent, "Hey, go ahead and notify workstream B that this is happening." And it in the back end, it has the team roster. It knows exactly who's in workstream B, and it sends out a Teams message to all of them, assuming of course that they've installed the agent. Otherwise, as the error handling, what I've done is if they haven't installed the agent and they can't receive these messages from the agent, instead just send them an email with this information and also a nudge to install the agent so they get these updates next time.
Excellent. And then one more question, because I always have questions. So when you're integrating the agent, you would just link it to your SharePoint site where you've got your master requirements list laid out already, and then it would just pick up the user details, or you'd plug them in? Or does it just
So
pick
what
up
I
users as they log in?
Yeah, so it uses the user's credentials. What I use is I configured a tool, the Get Items tool, which gives the agent access to the SharePoint list, which allows the agent to pull in any information that is stored there.
Okay, it's absolutely amazing. I look forward to learning to build it on your session that's coming up. Thank you. Thank you
I
very
dropped
much.
the link in the chat. Thank you, Sam,
I've
for your
already
questions.
signed up.
Oh,
Thank you.
wonderful. Wonderful. All right, Shreya, I'll hand it back over to you. Thank
No,
you.
thank you. No, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this, and I also signed up as we were doing your session. So hopefully I'll also have a spot as well in your session. We have 3 minutes to go. If anybody else have questions for Salija or Delia. No? Okay, then I will say again, thank you, ladies, for volunteering for the session. Beautiful session, and yeah, please do join the session on the 2nd of June, and do look out for an email from me in a few weeks just to remind you if you would like to co-present like these ladies did today. Please do register to volunteer. Thank you.